There are thousands of DOS games. Most of them are terrible. I play one selected at random with a 20-minute time limit and record it live. This is the result. Hello everyone, welcome back to the new Random DOS Game Show. And today we have a game called Patton Strikes Back by Chris Crawford from 1991. And we have a bunch of photographs pertaining to World War II, because that is the subject matter of this. And ooh, that is a firing squad, I believe. I think I'm going to have to censor that out. War is ugly, folks, and there it is again. I have to censor it again. But I'm sure YouTube probably won't take too kindly to those types of images. So before we see any more grisly photos of actual war, let's go ahead and click to move on past that. And let's go ahead and see what we're in for. We have the option to start a new game as the Germans or the Americans, level of difficulty from beginner all the way to expert, and the option for historical weather and reinforcements or random weather and reinforcements. Well, I think I'm going to play beginner as the Germans. The reason being that I'm probably going to lose, even on beginners. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I would rather have the Nazis lose, and plus it's historically accurate anyway, because this is about the Battle of the Bulge, which was Nazi Germany's last gasp, so to speak, on the West, where they tried to smash through and demoralize the Allied armies at their weakest point at the Ardennes forest, which the Germans did something very similar in 1940 when they made their initial blitzkrieg of France. But unlike 1940, despite having initial early successes, things did not pan out well at all for them. A combination of fuel and logistics supply problems and shortages, dogged American defenses, and the resumption of Allied air power once the weather improved pretty much spelled doom, and the Germans ended up wasting their best forces in a doomed offensive that was never going to win the war anyway, in my opinion. Best case scenario, it would have delayed the inevitable defeat of Nazi Germany, perhaps by a fair amount. But they were never going to win at that point. But what I'm doing now is I am controlling my forces, which are in red. And you can control them either via the arrow keys or by clicking and holding the mouse. And there are some shortcuts. I did read the manual a little bit before I started. And when I press A, you see those arrows got thicker. That means it's in attack order, which means that they're more effective at attacking. And the Americans in blue here are currently on defensive mode. So they're all hunkered down and attempting to bear the brunt of the oncoming offensive as best they can. But since we're playing on easy, I'm going to have a pretty comfortable advantage, I think. I'm not really doing much at all in the way of, like, battlefield tactics and such. I am just, for demonstration purposes, just smashing my forces directly into the American defenses and see if I can just overwhelm them. I'm probably not going to play long enough to get very far anyway, because this is a fairly in-depth strategy game by the looks of things, and you have to control each and every unit. Okay, there we go. So yeah, the orders are attack mode, defense mode, mobile mode, go forward. There's all sorts of different road commands. There's preferences for sound and game speed, and zones of control and supply lines. This is a super in-depth strategy game by the looks of things. But it's laser focused on a single battle. That is the Battle of the Bulge, as I mentioned before. So, and there's a history book option in case you want to learn more about the battle. Let's go ahead and look up the Sherman tank. And that is a lot of text. I am not going to read all of that for the purposes of the recording and the time limit, because it would take me too long. But if you want to know more about the battle, this game has oodles and oodles of info about it. So from the weapons to the personalities, we can look up George Patton himself, who the game is named after, and just really in depth. So for hardcore World War II history buffs out there, they'll probably get a kick out of this sort of thing. And I'll admit, I am a World War II history fan myself, but like I said before, for demonstration purposes, I'm not going to read all this for this initial first impression. If you're really curious, you can try out the game and possibly read it on your own time. But we're starting on December 16th, which was the beginning of the battle at 0600 hours. And I think if you hit this, time will start moving. Yes, it starts moving in 5-minute increments by the looks of things. And I think when you select a unit, time stops. Yes, it does. So let me just move my units, if I can, up. Mouse is a little finicky, I must admit. So for that, since I was having some difficulty with the click and drag, I decided to just use the arrow keys to move the units. So let's see. That's moved up. And I think I'm going to tell these guys to maybe... Oop. Oh, look at this. So we got little updates. Erwin Kushner's forces are hitting the Americans. There's all sorts of little projectiles on the screen, I guess, showing the exchange of fire. And okay. And I'm sure that these different units have different, like, combat capabilities and movement speeds. Like, I would imagine the Volksgrenadier forces are probably not as strong or as mobile as, say, the Panzer divisions, the German tanks. So, and because the Volksgrenadiers were essentially conscripts of, at this point in the war, children and old men, because that's about all Germany had left at that point to recruit from. They were given a weapon, given the most rudimentary training, and pointed in the direction of the enemy, basically. Okay, so there's more shenanigans going on in the battlefield. I'm going to tell these guys to go deep. And I'm going to stick with move, actually, for that, because I think they move faster if you keep them under the move command, and they're not going to be facing any action. And my score is looking pretty bad, so I'm not doing very well. I'm just smashing my forces headlong into the American defenses and hoping that I accomplish something. I figured I wasn't going to do very well with this, but having said that, it looks like we may have cleared out the American defenses here. So I'm going to tell this force, go back to move, and just try to start making a deep penetration of the enemy lines. No idea if that's a good idea or not, but oh well. Okay, let's watch more of this battle unfold. I think I'll let it play out for a little longer, and then I'll give my thoughts, because I think we've seen the gist of this game and what it has to offer at this point. So I'm not going to drag it out for too much longer, especially since this isn't the most exciting of gameplay to watch. Season Panzer Lehr occupies Clairvaux. Oh, very nice. So I'm doing better than I thought I did, but then again, this is beginner mode, so I'm sure with later difficulties things are much harder. All right, so the Germans are making good advances, but who knows if that's going to last. Ooh, what's going on? Oh, and there's that execution picture again. Looks like I'm going to have to censor this one, censor this part of the recording too. So I think they're talking about, yeah, the Germans used infiltration tactics as well to try to, they basically had Germans that could speak English well and knew a fair amount of American culture and such too. They had them dressed up in American uniforms and had them go in behind the lines and give the enemy false information, pretending to be one of them and such. It met with mixed success, I seem to remember, but in the end, quite a few of them were captured and executed, as you saw there. So But, ooh, the weather is with us. The Jabos are grounded. Okay, so yeah, the Allied air cover can't impact us yet at this point. And Panzer Lehr keeps on smashing through the Americans there. But anyway, yeah, because there is the option, if you're the Americans, to launch airstrikes against the enemy, because at this point in the war, the Allies had more or less complete air superiority. So the Germans were hoping to rely on bad weather to assist them, but like I mentioned before, the bad weather did not last for the duration of the battle. Okay, so yeah, you're just given periodic updates, but I'm going to end it soon. But before I do, I'm going to click About Patton, and it shows you some of the people behind it. And looks like they're dressed up in World War II uniforms for this. So Aaron Urbina, Take No Prisoners artist, Chris Crawford, Swears a Lot, and Dave Manconi, hand-to-hand programming. But I think we get the idea by now. So I think what I'll do, I don't think there's a way to get back to main menu. So I'm just going to select a unit to pause the action, and I'll give you my thoughts. So that's Patton Strikes Back, the Battle of the Bulge, and as the name implies, it's all about the titular Battle of the Bulge, and it has a pretty in-depth array of options, I must admit. You can play as either side with all sorts of different difficulty options and weather options and all sorts of considerations that you have to factor in, like the strength of your forces, supply lines and whatnot. I didn't get far enough to where that was really an issue one way or another for me, but I'm sure that if you were serious about playing out this battle on either side, that is a consideration that you have to factor in. Ultimately, this is one of those very niche, I feel, strategy titles where it's appealing the most to hardcore history buffs who have a particular interest in the battle in question. And it's not very big at all on flash or presentation. So I would say this is a game that's best suited for, yeah, history buffs and military history enthusiasts in particular who have a burning interest in World War II. Everyone else, your mileage is going to be limited, I feel, and you might be better off playing a more modern World War II strategy game or a different strategy game that has a little more panache in its presentation or such. But for what this is, this seems pretty decent overall, so if this looked interesting to you, give it a try, but if this looked as dull as dirt, then you probably aren't missing much either. And if you want to see more Random DOS game coverage, be sure to check out the other videos on the channel, as well as Lonnie's original run in our playlists. And if you like what you see, consider subscribing. That's all for now, and until next time, take care everyone.